Starstruck.
Well, welcome back to Joyride. I am Jared Brandon Flandy, and
I am Adam Mendenhall.
this is the show where we talk about all things transportation and adventure. And we're back for season 4. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's a nice, beautiful, crisp fall day where we're recording. If you're in Australia, it might not be fall, but it's nice here nonetheless. So, what is going to be our casual chat here for today, Adam?
Well, we're just going to briefly touch base on motorcycles and four-stroke versus two-stroke engine styles and where they've gone over the year, past, present, future.
I'm looking forward to that. I have a lot of questions for you. But before we get into that, we, of course, have to have some words from our sponsors. First up, we have British Parts Northwest. So, since 1982, British Parts Northwest has been your source for all your British car needs. They have knowledgeable staff who can help you find whatever you need to make sure your car is in the best condition possible. They carry quality parts brands such as Lucas, TRW, and Borg & Beck. British Parts is based out of the United States but ships both domestically and internationally and offers same-day shipping as well. You can place your order by phone by calling this number, 503-864-2001. That number again is 503-864-2001. You can also place your order online by going to bpnorthwest.com. Remember to spell out the word Northwest. British Parts is celebrating its 40th anniversary by teaming up with the Starstruck Podcast Network to bring you hit shows like Joyride. To claim 10% off on your next online purchase at bpnorthwest.com, use discount code Joyride. That's discount code Joyride. Also, we'd like to give a shout out to Noah Norwood of the Hot Rod Kid podcast. Noah is also a professional automotive restorer, particularly specializing in Fords, Mustangs, even the old V8s from the Bonnie and Clyde days. We do recommend you check on his podcast. That once again is the Hot Rod Kid podcast. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So, with our sponsors done and completed, we thank them very much for their support. And we thank all of you that also support us on Patreon. It helps our show keep going here. Let's get into our casual chats. You go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about, off-road motorcycles predominantly in recent years, where they've gone. I mean, everything advancing. And, of course, there's a lot of chatter with electric-powered vehicles across the board, and that's also getting into the dirt bike market and motorcycle market, street and off-road. But again, going back, it's just amazing to see the evolution of the engines themselves, starting off, whether it was an early four-stroke and then again with off-road, motocross, supercross, how two-stroke dominated the industry from the 1970s all the way into the early 2000s before four-strokes really started coming on the scene. And everyone for years, mentioned that, they'll never be able to produce enough power to keep up with a two-stroke. They won't be competitive. And that's just not the case. Today, now four-stroke being the standard across the board for the dirt bike and off-road industry, they've definitely made their place and established their dominance in the industry.
You want a little secret of me, personal secret? I'm a Lutheran. No. I have never ridden a motorcycle.
Really?
No.
Wow. Off-road or on-road?
None of the above. No.
It's a different experience. It's one thing being on a bicycle, but being on something that has its own power plant is another level, especially an off-road bike. I mean, and two-strokes especially, compared to a four-stroke, I mean, you have just twice the power, twice as fast, typically, very snappy. I mean, a two-stroke engine completes its power cycle within one revolution of a crankshaft, where a four-stroke takes two. So, I mean, you're getting all that power in 2 cycles versus 4. Your intake, power, compression, exhaust strokes being done in 2 versus 4. And that being said, it's just it delivers that power stroke that much faster, that much snappier, and there's really no substitution for that experience. Now, with that kind of power delivery, things are sometimes a little more uncontrollable, especially back in the day in the 1970s and 80s, and even some of the motorcycles in the 90s, definitely not as smooth as their four-stroke counterparts.
Now, very briefly here, for those that don't know, what's the major difference between a two-stroke and a four-stroke engine?
Oh, sure. So, a two-stroke engine is an engine that completes a power cycle within two strokes, up and down movements of the piston during the power cycle. The power cycle being completed in one revolution of the crankshaft. And the other side of that is, again, going specific to motorcycle engines, there is no valve trains in a two-stroke. They use a reed valve and an expansion chamber to move that exhaust gas in and out. And so very different versus a four-stroke where you're going to have your intake and exhaust valves in there. And that power cycle is done within two revolutions of the crankshaft.
Right. I said I've never ridden a motorcycle, but I do have a little background in power sports to a certain degree because, we did a snowmobile episode back in season 2, did a lot of that, and for years, snowmobiles used two-stroke engines too. And I think it was actually Arctic Cat that developed the first four-stroke sled, but then Yamaha was the first to go complete conversion, all over to four-stroke. And the other nicer thing about four-stroke is they're not as loud and as exciting, as a good two-stroke motor is, but they don't make as much smoke and that kind of thing, right?
No, much cleaner.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to worry about that oil-gas mixture. You can run straight gas. So yes, that's one of the biggest advantages of just not having to mess with that crucial oil-gas mixture. And if you mess that up too much on the lean side, you potentially seize or blow an engine up. Where a four-stroke, you don't have to worry about that since your crankcase uses a separate source of oil. Where in a two-stroke, it's getting its lubrication from what's in the fuel. There is no isolated crankcase, so it's a lot more to imagine that goes on there. How crucial that oil-gas mixture is.
So I have a question. Okay, so my understanding of motorcycles, there's really two main kind of categories. That's off-road and on-road, right?
Essentially anymore.
Okay.
A lot of it's kind of blended together, especially the off-road with a lot of these dual sports or super sport bikes kind of being a little bit of half and half. Yes, it kind of is just, you could jumble it into two categories for the most part.
Now, what do you have most experience on, dirt bikes or road bikes?
Dirt by far, yeah.
Yep. What is your preferred brand, if you have one?
Kawasaki is my preferred brand.
Interesting. Yep. I know a lot of people that are really into Hondas, a lot into Yamahas, but why Kawasaki?
I guess you could blame my uncle who lives here in Oregon.
It's always the crazy uncle. You can always blame it on.
He was a huge influence when I was younger, and Kawasaki made a name for themselves, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s for that matter, of just producing the most powerful engines out of the Japanese mix. And when I'm talking Japanese, I'm talking Kawasaki, Suzuki, Honda, and Yamaha. Kawasaki typically made the most powerful, sometimes too powerful engines. And my uncle was a big fan, had a number of Kawasaki's over the years. And when I first started riding, that was the first bike I jumped on, was one of his Kawasaki's, a KX125.
Yeah. How many cc's was it?
125 cc's on that bike. Yep.
I like it. And have you ridden any road bikes?
Yes, I've ridden a few road bikes. A roommate of mine actually was that was actually the first bike, now that I think of it, that I rode, a 2001 Suzuki Katana 600, four-stroke motorcycle on road, 600 cc displacement. Fun bike, carbureted, so it had 4 carburetors, 4-cylinder engine, and any of those bikes, whether it was Suzuki, Yamaha, again, Kawasaki, or Honda, when they were still carbureted like that, what a pain to keep those in tune properly from time to time. You definitely wanted to make sure they didn't come out of tune, otherwise it'd be a trip to the shop typically.
Was it loud? Did it pop? What do they do when they get out of tune?
Oh, they get out of tune, it's terrible. Power loss, misfires, yes, very poppy, especially under hard acceleration. And a lot of those bikes, his bike, and this is again older, going back, but late 90s engine design. They would turn revolutions. His, I think, redlined right around, it was 12,000 RPM.
So if you're out of tune, it's kind of like a one-man band going down the road and just burp, 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 burp. Okay.
Yeah. But much more difficult to get that back in sync again versus today, everything's fuel injected, EFI, and oh my God, a completely different world. Just really, it's the amount of the significance there is comparable, the same as automotive when they made the change from electronic feedback carburation or carburation in general to full-on electronic fuel injection.
Now, I've been told, because like I said, I've not ridden one, but riding a motorcycle is very much like riding a bicycle, just much faster. Is that a good description at all?
Yeah, that is for some. Much, much faster. Some of them neck snapping fast, if you can imagine riding a bike that quick. So a little different. I mean, I guess what's more amplified is just the amount of physical exertion it takes on some of those dirt bikes, especially upper body strength. Just holding on and maintaining steering amongst rough terrain and higher speeds is much more exhausting than it is, but comparable to that of a bicycle.
Right. So tell me, I'm curious, because if you're a car enthusiast, you have your favorite road trip routes, that kind of thing. What is your favorite motorcycle route, or your favorite kind of motorcycle trip, if it's not on the road, I guess I should say?
Sure. I would say scenic trail riding, especially over high desert or open areas where you have a good view, or again, the payoff is at the end of the trail, you're at a mountaintop where you have some type of scenery to enjoy. And then on the way down, it's a different journey. That's typically my most enjoyable ride. And I've done a number of poker runs over the years again, that's a little different of a competition, but at some point there's a payoff there with scenery. Yep.
So if you go downhill on a motorcycle, is that a little colon clenching, or is that okay?
Absolutely, it can be. It's not as simple as it sounds. Sometimes the downhill is as difficult, if not more so, than the ascent. So it just depends on the terrain.
Well, like at snowmobiling, we have side hilling. You go up a mountainside essentially. I never did it because I'm not doing that. Everyone else can show how big their sleds are.
Oh, absolutely.
I did it, but I've seen a lot of guys, they do it. They go all the way up top, and we're talking like probably 70, 80 degree angles. Your thumb has to be on that throttle to get up there. And then you got to turn around, and then you got to come back down. And apparently, coming back down is the scarier of the two. So.
It is. I think some of the worst accidents I've had, especially on trails, is on the descent, coming back down the trail.
And I don't think I've seen any fatalities. I've seen some sleds come down without the rider, though, roll downhill, hoods flying off, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there goes $10,000.
Absolutely. And it just depends on the difficulty of the trails. I mean, there's some trails that are as difficult, if not more so, than a motocross track or a supercross track, where you have something that what's coming up next after a couple laps, of course, where on a trail, you never know what kind of surprise could be out there that you're going to encounter. So it makes it interesting, adds another level of adventure.
Yep. So why are you more interested in the dirt bike side compared to the road side? I'm just curious, because that is a very schism there.
Oh, it is. It's a huge side. I guess for myself, it comes down to again, I grew up on two strokes, and still having areas where you can legally operate that and have fun. That's what attracts me more to the dirt. Where again, I mean, it's been years since a two-stroke has been, legal on the street, to where a brand new manufactured bike could be, manufactured to operate on the road as a two-stroke. It's been a long time since that happened. Suzuki Kawasaki used to make some of those. They called them Widowmakers back in the day, 3-cylinder two-strokes that produced an excessive amount of power. And you look at it's funny looking back at suspension in those days, where you had spring shocks on the back, and what they had compared to today is a huge difference. And I suppose if I was born in a different era, it'd be a little different, because I would have had that experience, which I didn't in the era I was born in.
Yes, not to get horribly off topic, but have you ever ridden a three-wheeler? So the two wheels back, one up front?
I have. When I was young, I was about 12 years old, and, I didn't go very fast. Again, I had just started riding. I mean, I didn't start until I was about 11 as far as getting on bikes. And I realized why those things were so dangerous even at that age.
That's what I was getting at, because you're talking about safety concerns. It's like, I've heard those three-wheelers are absolutely, I don't think they even make them anymore, do they?
No, they don't.
They were just so dangerous.
No, those were so dangerous, and I can't even, oh boy, it's been a long time since they outlawed those in the 80s after all the accidents.
Was it that long back, 80s?
Yep, it was.
Yeah, then they went to the quad bike kind of style, yeah. Mm-hmm. I know, I've heard all sorts of
those
stories.
Honda three-wheelers, it's a staple in history, that's for sure.
It's kind of like a little more print of Reliant Robin, just always rolling over.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. But, I don't know. It all depends, as far as the expense of whether you have a road bike or an off-road bike. Boy, I mean, it's negligible. I mean, it just depends on the model of bike, how new, and the maintenance that goes into it. And both have their caveats. Today, I mean, like everything else, price is going up. Things are more expensive. And the four-stroke bikes, they're great. They make a lot of power. They run clean, but they're expensive to work on. I mean, you have a lot more there. You have a camshaft, you have a valve train, you have a timing chain, you have all these things, that are involved, much more complex, and there's more things that can go wrong. But again, they've just gotten more efficient, easier to tune, especially with the fuel injection. That's been a game changer, where dirt bikes, especially the two-strokes for years, you were constantly making sure your carb was jetted right, making sure you're running clean fuel, on top of your maintenance, where today, it's much more forgiving. You have a plugged fuel injector, you swap that out, and again, programmable. You have a full, EFI system and all the capabilities that come with that, where a carburetor, you mechanically had to make modifications to tune that and make adjustments.
Which I'm sure is a bitch if you're out on the trail, right?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's huge. I'll tell you right now, if you're going on an extensive trail ride, especially something that went up in altitude where your bike wasn't jetted properly, you carried an extra spark plug, at least one, if not two, in your pack with the proper tools to change it out.
Same thing with snowmobiles. That's what a lot of people don't know. When you have a carburetor, you have that elevation problem due to the airflow, or explain that to me real fast.
Yeah, so that would be the actual thickness of the air, or the oxygen content as you go higher in elevation gets thinner. So naturally, as that happens, the fuel mixture, depending on where it's set, runs richer and richer the higher you go.
Yeah. And so, once again, since we're kind of on this conversation of carburetors, not to get off of motorcycles too much, but when did cars, for the most start not having carburetors?
Oh boy, it was about mid to late 1980s
Yeah,
before it really became
right.
very common, because they had that horrific area, and I believe we've mentioned this in previous podcasts, of electronic feedback carburetors, and Honda was one of them. The Honda Accords and Civics back in the day that had the combination of the transition from carburation to fuel injection was really ugly there. If you were caught in the middle of that, where they attached electronics to a carburetor, God help you. I remember there were so many issues with some of those. The only fix at the dealership was, we just have to replace your carburetor, and it was $1,200. And imagine that in 1985 or 86. That's a lot of money.
My dad tells a story because back in the day when he was a little kid, Grandpa, his dad was always having to fix Grandma's car, particularly the carburetor, always something, or the spark plugs. Every weekend having to adjust something on it. Because even back, the 70s, cars were still not horribly reliable, far better than they were back in the 30s, obviously. But it's almost kind of like the Christmas story. My dad says, I was a little kid, I can't remember exactly what age it is. This is the story he's telling me, right? And Grandpa did something inside the engine. I think he made contact with the battery or something, and sparks flew.
Oh my God!
And so my dad yelled fudge, but didn't yell fudge, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it wasn't like Grandpa just looked at it and went, "Don't say that in front of your mother." That was all it was said.
That's all it was said.
It's like, that's positive parenting.
It is.
I can approve of that.
Oh my God! Absolutely. Oh boy.
So in other words, EFI is a much better solution overall.
Oh, it is. Oh my gosh, it's just opened up so many more doors, and just capabilities, and just versatility. There's just so much more you can do with EFI, and not have to make those physical mechanical modifications to it, where you can just plug in a scan tool or a programmer and make your adjustments there. But again, the maintenance that goes with it, and it's getting more competitive. There's more electric motorcycles that are coming on the scene, both street and off-road.
Yes, let's talk about that, okay, because that's, electrification's all the rage. Okay, I want to know about the electric motorcycles, because that's becoming a big thing too, right?
It is. It is. It's really coming down to, like everything else, battery performance. The motors are incredible. In fact, I recently watched some videos of a gentleman on a motorcycle track, and he was on one of those Zero motorcycles, an off-road version, and he was lapping people in the latest four-strokes with this bike. His only limitations were his battery longevity and life of the battery. So, and he couldn't quite go. He couldn't go the full extent that they could go on a full tank. At least not full throttle, because again, in an electric vehicle, the more power you exert, the quicker your battery gets depleted. So that was his only struggle. My gosh. The biggest advantage, again, this applies to the cars as well, is the instantaneous torque. You still have a torque curve. These four-strokes are very torquey, much more torquey than a two-stroke. A two-stroke's more top-end horsepower, typically. Right. But these electric bikes are another level. There's no curve. They can make up for, I made a mistake, didn't go into a corner fast enough. Well, boom, here I am. It's like a two-stroke a two-stroke version of a four-stroke, where you have twice the power of a four-stroke, but instantaneous of a two-stroke. So,
right.
Yeah.
kind of on that note, because we talk about movies or TV shows that kind of relate to the topics we're talking about. Did you ever watch that Ewan McGregor series of motorcycle shows?
I did some of those, not all the episodes, but yeah, his passion of Indian motorcycles and some old motorcycle tracks he would ride on.
Yeah, I think that first season. I mean, it's older. Like I'm trying to think. I can't remember. Early 2000s, I think, but it was a long way around, right? When him and his buddy Charlie Borman, they go around the whole world on motorcycle, and I think they had BMW GSs, and then they did the same thing, but they did the long way down. So they went from kind of London, I think, down through Africa, if I remember right. But then their latest season that just came out on Apple TV was the long way up. So they go from the bottom tip of South America up to Los Angeles, but they did it on those new electric Harleys.
Oh, wow, that's right. You know what? That does sound familiar. And that was brand new stuff.
It was brand new.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they had some teething problems, because it is new. There was a couple times where they were a little low on electricity, not fuel, but they did make the whole trip on 2 electric bikes.
That's good. That's a great point. And, that's a great series, by the way. Please check that out. I'm sure we can provide some details later on episodes and links to that. But, yeah, he has a true passion for bikes, and I think he did a really great job in some of those episodes.
Also, they used 2 Rivian prototype trucks. I believe at the time they weren't available to the public, so that was the first time they were kind of seen in the TV show. They used them as the camera cars.
Oh, really?
And even though they were prototypes, they were horribly reliable.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they liked the trucks as much as they did the bikes.
Yeah, I remember him as well doing some research on abandoned tracks, and some of them are old motorcycle tracks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some of them were still in condition where you could ride on, others not, but interesting nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you were to buy a road bike, what brand would you buy in that regard?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. So I actually did buy a road bike.
Oh,
here.
Okay.
Not long ago. This is just coming out. I don't think I've mentioned this to you, but a good friend of mine who recently moved from the Pacific Northwest to Florida had a motorcycle that had been just collecting some dust in his garage. He had bought it brand new. And great bike, good year, very mass-produced. It's nothing rare. It's a very mass-produced bike, which is actually a good thing from a parts support perspective. But it's a model year 2008 Kawasaki Ninja 650R, which is a parallel twin engine, total 650 cc's of displacement. And that's a side-by-side 2-cylinder engine, not a V-twin, to explain the difference there. But low mileage, he had about just around 12,000 miles on the bike, and so I picked that up, and all it really needed was a chain and sprocket and new tires, and I'm working on that right now. So it's actually licensed already. I just have to get my endorsement. So
I love how Kawasaki bikes all have these literally ninja names on them.
Yes. That's really been a staple for those bikes, and this one's the classic Kawasaki green, extreme green. So it pops when you see it. It definitely says Kawasaki, where oftentimes not, depending on the paint job, you wouldn't notice it's a Kawasaki if it's blue or red or black sometimes.
Better known as a crotch rocket, right?
Exactly. That's another nickname for it.
Not to be disparaging, but those, even though those still look more comfortable than a big chopper. I don't know how you even ride with your arms that high up,
Yes. Yeah. It's... I guess it depends on the longevity of the ride.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a taller frame individual, but his is right in the middle. It's not too small and it's not too big for me, so it does fit me well.
Now, okay, let me ask your opinion on this. If I was ever to buy a road bike, like I just kind of said it earlier with the Ewan McGregor, Charlie Boorman thing, but I'm leaning towards a BMW GS, the dual sport kind.
Yeah, beautiful bikes, extremely reliable, well built. BMW, again, producing bikes for many, many decades. I mean, going back into the World War II era, I mean, it's just, they make some great machines, especially from an engine building standpoint.
Now, why is that? They just built good engines? Or?
I think it just comes back to that German engineering there, and that's where that's where BMW shines sometimes.
What did they first start making? Was it motorcycles or airplanes, or was it both, or something like that? They were making motorcycles before cars, though, right?
Yes, they're making motorcycles before cars. That's great. I do not know offhand. That's another episode to cover right there.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Are you the only one that rides in your family, or does your brother do anything like that?
So my brother, he did ride when we were younger, not nearly as enthusiastic as myself. We grew up, well, again, first introduced to Kawasaki, but we had some, in the mid-90s, a Honda XR 4-stroke, air-cooled motorcycle, single-cylinder 4-strokes. Great trail bikes, great enduro bikes, and we grew up riding those. He enjoyed those very much. He gravitated more towards cars than the bikes, even early on. And I was into both, but I lived and breathed motorcycles, especially off-road. Just enjoyed it so much. And I think part of it was the group of people I was around with also were in the bikes, and his friends were not as much, so that was another influence, like most people.
Right. So do you have any comical motorcycle-related stories of your own personal history that you feel okay with sharing?
Oh, boy. Geez. Yeah, well, I guess you can laugh now. I mean, we'll have to come back to that. I'll think something up.
We'll save that for another. We'll save that for another episode.
We'll save that for another one. Yeah, there's a few I'll have to filter out.
The whole world's going to be very, very intrigued to hear the story now.
I've got some good ones.
You've baited them. All right. Well, we're kind of getting toward the end of our time here for this episode. So you have any last-minute thoughts about the world of off-road motorcycles and all that kind of stuff?
I would just encourage people to, even if you're not into bikes, but if you're into transportation, just keep your eyes open. There's a lot of neat stuff coming out, and there's still a lot of neat stuff just with the evolution of the gasoline engine and how it continues to get more and more refined with motorcycles, not just electric. But keep your eyes open. There's a lot of neat stuff out there, and at the same time, don't forget the history of where it came from.
Now, I do have one last concluding question here. Since we now have figured out you do have a road bike and you've ridden trail bikes, would you ever buy an electric bike?
So, an engineer that I work with, he has an electric street bike, and it's very intriguing. And I'll mention this real quick because it's a loaded subject we could talk about on another episode. But recently, with the weather going into the wintertime, he mentioned he purchased some gear that is heated. Gloves, has coils in it for heated, again, pants, heated jacket, and he's trying to work on a way to plug that into the bike so he can power that off the bike while he's riding. So, hey, that's
okay.
That's creative. I didn't think of that except for standalone. So with a large battery pack, I don't know how much it would drain the battery, but having that kind of versatility, yeah.
Well, before we finish up here, since you mentioned that, I think I would imagine you recommend having good gear when you're riding.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely more forgiving on the dirt side with the flexibility on gear, but I couldn't advise or recommend this more when you're going onto the street and you're riding on asphalt. You need to invest in the best because there's nothing more important than, what your skull has. Nothing more important than what sits on your shoulders, I'll put it that way. So don't skimp on helmet price. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that surprisingly responsible note for this show, I think we're going to wrap things up here. By all means, please, if we're on Patreon, we appreciate your support there if you can. All our links are in the bottom descriptions of whatever podcast app you're using. We have stuff on the internet too. By all means, check out our parent company's website, starstruckcompany.com. That's other projects that me and Adam have also worked on. So we'd really appreciate if you check that. Also, if you whatever app you're using, please give us a good like. We like that. 5-star ratings. It helps our show. We'd prefer a positive comment if you can. That's also be nice. But on that note, I think we'll all talk to you in our next episode of Joyride.
Till next time.
All right. Signing out.